Coogs house. Houston came on top to help open a wild weekend of college football, even as disappointing as parts of Friday night's game were.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Appreciate you making your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. If you want to join the conversation but you don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below. We're going to start with tortilla stuff because tortilla tech this week. We'll talk more about that throughout the week. But I'm going to ask you what kind of tortilla you put your taco in. Lots of hot takes on that one, I'm sure. Today's show is brought to you by our buddies at FanDuel, American Sportsbook. And we got more on all that fun later. Sportsbook is going to be a good thing for you to be checking out this week, as well as Houston's in the action, ESPN kind of game of the week kind of stuff in the action this Saturday. But last Friday night, Houston beat Oregon State at the buzzer in overtime. Big-time football win on Friday night that had some disappointing parts, if we're being honest. Went back and watched some more video over the weekend. We got the biggest takeaways from the game. We'll talk about that in the first segment. Second segment, I want to talk about some breakouts after that one. I want to talk about some of those performances that maybe went under the radar a little bit. Last segment, I want to talk about getting too high or too low on various parts of this one. Now, Houston in this game, they won close one. Obviously, the live reaction show was like baffled at myself. I was baffled anyway about like what to make of this game and what to do with this one. I will say I've watched it another time. I've went back and watched certain plays several times. I still don't completely know what to make of this one, right? I will say in watching it back a second time with the result in hand, emotions a little bit more removed from it, one of my biggest takeaways is a good old coachism that it's never as good as you thought it was, and it's never as bad as you thought it was either. Coaches have said that for what feels like millennia about college football or football in general. But generally speaking, the emotions of the game right afterwards make you feel like some things were really, really crazy great, and some things are really, really crazy not, based on how the results go. And after thinking about it through and going back and looking at some stuff, obviously, there were a number of things that didn't feel like they were quite as bad as they might have been on the first watch through. The interception was not a great throw by Connor Weigman, but it wasn't quite as bad as it was a little bit of an overthrow, and then rewatched a few times. Okay, well, he can't quite underthrow it. He can't err on this, can't err on that. It still missed the target by a lot, right? But things like that, I think, get more as you go through and watch it more times, get more and more understandable. Now, I think the biggest takeaway I have on that actually is that while this was not a game where things were as great as you thought it was with the jubilation at the end, or as low as you thought it was for the 54 minutes you got outplayed in this football game, I will say that this feels like the first learn how to win game for the Houston Cougars under Willie Fritz. And it's obviously not their first win. They're 4-0 this season. They won 4 games last season. Right there, that's 8 total. But if you look at this game, it's really the first needed to just find a way to win the ball game kind of games for Houston. Last year, look, bluntly, you beat Rice, you had a lot more talent, and then 3 other games in conference, you won when Vegas, in air quotes, said you had no chance, right? Like it wasn't supposed to be a win. There was no gutting one out that you just needed to get done. It was all, found money at that point, so to speak. In this game, you had pressure that did not exist in those games, right? That makes this a stronger win. Frankly, Colorado, while it was a much better opponent, it certainly got away from them at a much earlier in the game, got away from Colorado, and they never really came back and pushed you on that in the same kind of way. I mean, Oregon State pushed you all game. They're playing for their coach's job in a lot of ways, right? Your first two games of the season didn't have the same kind of comparable talent by any stretch. Not that Oregon State's comparable talent, but it's a lot different than Rice or SFA, right? So all that is to say, this is the first game like this that we've seen Houston win under Willie Fritz. And sometimes you've got to learn how to win those games. And I think that what my takeaway from this game is that, like, it might not have been as great, might not have been as bad, but they did find a way to win this game. And that's important. Frankly, in a Willie Fritz system, a Slade and Angle offense, you're not designed to win games you commit 8 penalties in, right? That's just not the reality of the situation here. And yet those penalties were like just 60 yards. I saw people commenting on things online about and like how the offense should be able to make up for 60 yards. But it wasn't really just the 60 yards. It's also all the yards gained or the big defensive stop or whatever that you then lose out on as you lose those 5 yards or whatever, right? So it's the big run, it's the nice catch, it's the great, it's that subtracted from your game as well. My other big takeaway on this one, and this one may be a little bit hotter. Look, everyone loved the way tempo looked in the end of this game. So Houston's 2-minute drill that they ran for the final 6 minutes of regulation worked awesome. I mean, it didn't look like Oregon State could keep everything in front of them. Obviously, Coach L breaks away for a big touchdown catch, but you also had like the deep shot to Boogie, Amare Thomas in the middle. Like things worked out in the 2-minute drill in a way that they didn't for so much of the game, and it looked like Connor was more comfortable. Like Oregon State was not comfortable. I don't. A lot of people are calling for 2-minute tempo and all that a lot. I feel like, honestly, part of this is that, look, okay, tempo is a great thing to use, and it's a great thing to use as a curveball. I think they actually call it fastball, and which makes it a little ironic, but like a NASCAR type of package. A year ago, you couldn't do this at all. You just didn't have good enough passing game for it. I'm not saying to not do the tempo or the fastball offense more often. I just don't think it works for this Houston team if it's your bread and butter. I don't think you can do it for long stretches of each quarter. I don't think you can do it every other possession. I think it works best when the defense can't really get a beat on when it's coming. And I think that means you mix it up in like that second drive of the game, you get a first down, hit them with it, right? If you want to open the game on the first drive with it, kind of catch them off their toes or on their toe, however you want to say that, and then not come back to it till the third quarter, keep them guessing as to when it's coming, because part of the strength of this in that moment was Oregon State couldn't figure out what was coming with it, right? If you do it all the time, okay, you might do well the first game, you do it the whole game. The second game, they're going to know it's coming, right? Or they're going to certainly have prepared for it. And part of the deal is the pressure you're putting on the opponent with making them prepare for a bunch of different things. Also, as much as tempo and fastball offense can be used to wear out a defensive line and can negate an advantage that the defensive line has versus your own offensive line, that's an advantage you feel like they have. It also can wear out your own wideouts because you don't substitute them quite as frequent. You might substitute the one on your sideline or something, but they're already running and running and running and running and then running with the football and running and getting tackled and all that. Like, it wears your own guys out too. And while we're a stronger roster than we were a year ago and a deeper roster at some spots than we were a year ago, that's a lot to ask of some folks because the conditioning aspect comes in because you're not able to sub quite as frequently. We also were down one of our running backs, though we had this great running back room. I think we do. Fat Burnett was listed as available, but not on the field at all last week. You saw DJ Butler actually come into the third running back. It's just not quite the same. And so I think that tempo is a weapon for this team. I think Connor Weigman looked really comfortable in that approach. But also, I don't think you can go to it for a base offense with any success with the present roster. Frankly, it wasn't built and recruited to that. And also, it's just not what like this the skill sets of these guys are. It is a methodical don't make mistakes, don't make, move backwards kind of offense. And honestly, there have been parts of that that have been really strong. And then when you hit them with tempo or fastball, then ultimately you get some say in the matter. Now, I want to talk more about some breakout players that, honestly, the first one of which on my list came through in that tempo type of football. But before we get to all that, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at 5 Hour Energy because honestly, 5 Hour Energy played a big role in Friday night for me. I hope it did for you as well. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2 ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. I love how portable they are. I teach, I coach, a podcast, lots of different things. I need to carry this on the go with me. Big taste in a tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost you need when you need it. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's going to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Park Ainsworth locked on Coogs here. And as we're looking at last Friday night's game, a handful of players jumped out to me on rewatch. I guess the first one was live as well, but certainly jumped out to me on rewatch in a way I was like, oh, that that guy made a bigger difference than I realized when we talked about it Friday night. Now, Amare Thomas, I talked on Friday night. I think a lot of people are calling him the MVP of the game on offense, certainly, and for good reason. He had 6 catches for 104 yards. First time as a Houston Cougar that he's had over 100 yards. I think the thing that stuck out to me in this one was it wasn't just the drive where Boogie Johnson scores near the end of the game. His plays were, generally speaking, very timely. And he made very timely catches, was open at the right time for Connor. Connor was able to find him in pockets, and he had a catch that got called off for penalty too. That would have, I guess, they end up throwing it to him on the next opportunity, so he gets some of his yards back and all that. But he really seems to be becoming that go-to wide receiver option for Connor Weigman. And I don't know that you can always predict those kind of things before the season. And we may be looking back at this in November as like Parker was crazy in September. But right now, it feels like Amare Thomas and Connor have a connection that is when you get to those tempo situations, you get to those scramble situations, they just have this connection where they're on the same wavelength. I think Stephon Boogie Johnson is building that too. We saw the big touchdown throw. We also saw the earlier in the game on the near to the TV sideline. And frankly, Boogie's drop, well, I want to, it was a drop that he probably should have caught. Boogie's drop was a moment where Connor found him in a spot where they just trusted one another and didn't come up with the football. That's, I think, also happening. But Amare seems to be capitalizing on these in a way that is impacting winning. It's changing the outcome of football games. Having Amare Thomas playing like he's playing is helping Houston win. There's no way around it. He's probably the biggest game changer on offense from last Friday night in my eyes. I'm interested to see what you guys have in comments down below. So I guess you can tell me if you think I'm way far off on that. Now, my other 3 guys are actually all defensive. And I think that I don't have Carlos Allen listed for the first time all season, not because he didn't break out. I think he was PFF's first team, all whatever from the week and all that. At this point, Carlos Allen playing tremendously at an all everything level is almost not even breaking out. He looks like a pro every week, and I don't mean to say I'm running out of things to say about him. I could speak, in passionately about a lot of different things that he does well. He's really, really good. I just think that other guys showed up in a way that maybe haven't shown up yet or haven't gotten the limelight yet. I want to talk first out of my defensive guys here, and I got 3 of them if we have time for all 3. About Sione Fotu. Now, he transferred in last season, or last offseason, I should say, over the summer. And, honestly, when I texted some folks at Utah about him, or folks that cover Utah about him, they were kind of like, oh, yeah, good for him. Hope he found a landing place. They just kind of threw that out there like, hey, good job, Sione. Good job. Like they weren't upset about him getting it back into the Big 12 or whatever. And then in this game, he obviously leads Houston in tackles at 15 with 7 solos, and that's statistically significant, right? Obviously. I don't think until second rewatch or second watch slash rewatch, I don't I don't think that I realized how because it felt like Oregon State was hitting Houston for 5 yards a pop. And I guess they technically averaged 3.8 yards per carry, but I felt like every time Oregon State ran the football, they got 5 yards. Like that was it just felt like a given. And I don't think I realized until watching it again how many times that look, fighting through backside traffic, scraping over the top, etc. Sione Fotu is like the guy making sure that that gain is just 4.5 yards, not 8, right? That he's making sure he's in the ankles or securing a tackle with a teammate or whatever in a way that makes sure it is air quotes just a 5 yard gain. And again, there are lots of reasons to be upset that it was a 5 yard gain in the first place. Not negating that. Don't mean to overstate that. However, this game was within reach the entire time because those 4 and 5 yard gains were just 4 and 5 yard gains, right? And Fotu's impact keeps that from being different. You always want your defensive lineman to be doing that their own way, and you'd probably rather a linebacker have if he's going to have 15 tackles, maybe have them close to the line of scrimmage or something, not scraping from the backside. However, Fotu did a great job, I thought, in this one of making sure plays got cut off when they did. Another defense guy I got here on my list is Mark Stampley. And it sounds like they legitimately credited the second block field goal, the one that sent the game to overtime, to Will James. Love Will James, not upset about that. I really still think I saw Mark Stampley's hands on it, whatever, right? And look, without all 22 footage, it's hard to see every single thing a defensive back does. They get off the screen pretty quickly, and if they're back on the screen, it's usually because the guy's getting a target, right, or whatever, right? And he did have his wide receiver he was closest to get targeted 5 times. 3 of them were catches. He got matched up with Trent Walker a lot. And Trent Walker is probably Oregon State's best wide receiver. Certainly had their best game and all of that on as a wide receiver on Friday. I thought Mark Stampley did a great job, and he did give up one big catch, and it was 20 yards or something. But I continue to be impressed by this kid. It feels like he doesn't get appropriately acknowledged because his guys just aren't open enough for him to make statistical plays, right? And I don't know how to quantify that that's a good thing, but it's ultimately a good thing, right? If he had a bunch of tackles, that means the guy he was covering was open a lot of times, right? And so I think that Stampley's impact is visible when you're looking for it. And I think on all 22, it might stick out more. But I really, really like what he's bringing to the table. In a similar vein, my last breakout guy is another defensive guy, Zelmar Vedder. Vedder only allowed 1 catch. He's becoming what feels like a specialist, passing situations, etc. He's big, strong, long. At one point, look at the NFL was going towards that direction in corners, and they've kind of changed their direction a little bit some. But he is a big, think Richard Sherman sized athlete at corner. And it's rare. I mean, Richard Sherman is going to be a Hall of Famer because of the way he played the position, right? I mean, if you're that big and strong an athlete and able to play corner, that gives you a lot of advantages. Vader is very much still a developing kind of guy. He's getting better, it looks like to me, each week. Was involved, especially considering he's kind of a pass game specialist, was involved a lot, I thought, on Friday night. But I thought his ability to cover ground and space allowed him to make impactful plays on some of these longer passing downs and stuff like that. Again, to keep the game within reach. So many of these defensive guys, yes, Houston was down 14 with under 7 minutes to go in the game and all that. But that it was just 14 is really important because had it been literally 18, none of Houston's efforts would have mattered. And those are my breakout guys. Not Connor Weigman's really good. Okay, figured that out already. Okay, Carlos Allen's really good. Okay, figured that out already. Dean Connors is really good. We figured that out already. These are guys that I think are popping up more and more throughout the season. Keeping tabs on them as we go. Speaking of keeping tabs, I want to make sure we watch some things I don't want to get too high on or too low on in the final segment here before we put a bow on Oregon State and move on to Tech Week. But before we get to there, I do want to say that today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Quo. Now, Quo is one of the tools that can help make a huge difference for business owners, formerly known as Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system that you've been hearing us talk about for a minute now. It's just got a new name. Here's why it matters. Every time you miss a call in your business, money gets left on the table. It's where every customer conversation counts. You need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the number one business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying two phones or relying on a landline. We all hate when we're trying to get a hold of someone for business. They don't answer. We just go to the next one. Don't let that skipped over business be your business. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly known as OpenPhone. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/locked on college. That's quo.com/locked on college. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. Now, the NFL season is here. The Texans might have just realized it was here on Sunday. FanDuel's got an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you get back $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can get in on the action before the game, as it's starting, after it's starting, props, money lines, over-unders. Everything, anything you want to get in on is over at FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Park Rangers locked on Coogs here, putting a bow on Houston, beating Oregon State in the wee hours of Saturday morning before we move on to Tech Week, Tortillas Week here at Locked On Cougs. Now, look, these are things I don't want to get too high on or too low on as I look back at the win that just happened. I think it's important to try and keep level over the course of it. Enjoy the game day, enjoy the game night, etc. Try and stay level over the course of the season, though. And look, you just can't get too high on this one. You did beat an 0-4 team, admittedly on the road. I'm surprised their coach hasn't been fired yet. It sounds like it may happen at some point this season if things don't switch it up for them. It also took you over time to get to that point, right? It did not come with a gate swing on this one. Felt like you were getting trap gained for a lot of the game, right? And I don't know. I feel like as you look at this game, you can't forget that part when creating expectations for the rest of the season, right? You don't want to get too high on the game and realize, okay, you beat a Pac-12 team. Well, that's two teams right now. All right. Well, you won on the road. Okay, but they were 0-4. Okay, but they had just keep everything in mind there. You won the game you're supposed to win, which is also why I don't want to get too low on this. I think a lot of people are denigrating Houston's win because it was honestly against a team that was 0-4 and was looking for their first win. And it was a stadium that had left a lot of empty seats out and all that, right? And look, I say all that understanding that that might bring Houston fans down. I can't believe it took us to overtime to beat Oregon State. But that to me is also getting too low. This team found a way to win on Friday night. And I think that's something we haven't been able to say about a team in Houston for a long time. Look, pre-Willie Fritz, and he only been coaching for what feels like a hot minute, you saw plenty of Houston coaches lose this game. Immediately before Willie Fritz, you saw coach lose this game in the Dana Holgorsen era. You saw Tom Herman lose a game or two like this as well. You saw Major Applewhite lose games like this. Coaches through Houston don't always win these games. it's nice to have a guy that figured it out this early. There's something to be said about winning a game like this when you play ugly, play poorly, and just find a way to win anyways. This is a game that Houston had a 2.5% win probability at one point in the fourth quarter. 2.5%. Now, I don't know if you follow win probability on ESPN or whatever, but that means teams with that score at that point in the game win that football game 2.5% of the time. That ain't great. And you found a way to be one of those teams, right? And I think that you've got to learn that as a team, a culture, a program, right? And that was a moment where Houston learned that. Again, we saw the guy immediately preceding Willie Fritz and Dana Holgerson not win that game, right? Now, I say two highs and two lows, and my third one here, I weirdly feel like Goldilocks because it feels like a just right. I think that Connor Weigman is getting kind of that just right treatment from Houston fans. People are not getting too high on him or getting too low on him as a fan base. He's the kind of kid that coming back home to the city of Houston and wants to help rebuild this program while helping rebuild his own career, right? And look, Aggie fans, the internet is forever. They were awful to this kid. I understand when I say something like that online, but, I still want him to be good. No, you didn't. It's all online. It's all very searchable. A&M was awful as a fan base to this kid. And I think Houston's been much more appropriate, right? Does a Houston fan get upset when they see stuff like the interception happen on Friday night? Yes. Do they get excited when they see him in a slant over the middle to Tanner Kogel for a gigantic 50-yard touchdown? Yes. Like they ride the waves of this kid in a way that's better than it's been. Connor comes into a program that hadn't had a great passing game for 2 years. And frankly, has had a history of great quarterbacks that seem to stall fairly recently. And look, Donovan Smith is a great leader. The kids loves playing with and for Donovan. Zion Chris is a guy that has energy, and people love playing with that energy to it as well. I mean to denigrate any of that, but Connor plays the position in a way that is just different and better. And there's, yes, the 3 or 4 bad throws on Friday night, and he might make 3 or 4 bad throws a game. Yes, one of them was a bad interception. Yes, those things happened. And look, if you're playing a college football playoff team, all 4 of those throws might really hurt you. They really might, right? They really might. However, over the course of the game, you can't argue his positives didn't outweigh his negatives. You can't argue that he didn't also make plays that led to them ultimately winning the game or being in position to win the game. He also had his receivers drop the ball on him. Kobe Young and Stephon Boogie Johnson, while Boogie probably doesn't score on his, and Kobe probably falls inside the 10 with the ball on his if they just catch it. And again, 2 great receivers drop the football. If those drops don't happen, we're talking about Connor having a phenomenal night. Sure, 1 interception. Phenomenal night if those 2 catches happen instead of drops, right? Like, there's just this piece of it where, like, suddenly he's giving you fighters and punchers chances and moments that it's been a while since they happened. And I take that a lot. I also think that, yes, again, those 4 bad throws or 4 not great throws might hurt you against the college football playoff caliber team. As we rebuild the program, we got to X those out as well. I also think that this program, the coaching staff, the players, the fans, the ESPN love he got for, the very feel-good story about his girlfriend fighting back from her injury, all of that is to say that we're giving him a chance to develop and grow too, in a way that, look, A&M wanted him to come in and like brush the stink off of that program or whatever. And that is way too much for one person to do, frankly. Houston's giving him a different feeling, and it's visible. It's growing. He's better each week, and we're hoping to be better again this Saturday as Houston hosts Texas Tech. Now, we'll talk about that throughout the week, so make sure you stay tuned, stay subscribed, hit the bell so you know when we go live here at Locked on Coogs. Hoping for some good stuff going on this week on the side of things, but I don't want to jump the gun too much. We are going to have some crossover kind of content, obviously, as we do every week. Be breaking down Houston and Tech the rest of the way here, folks. Locked On Cougs Premier, Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every single day. Go Cougs.